Former Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1963, and can trace his family roots to the early Spanish settlers here in this part of America, decades before the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. The youngest of 8 children. I am the oldest of 8. Raised by a single mom, he knew what poverty was. Through hard work and perseverance, he has lived the American dream. Twice his company was named Small Business of the Year and is recognized as one of New Mexico's most successful small businesses. First elected in 1998 as a councilman of Los Ranchos, New Mexico. Then in 2001, he served in the New Mexico House of Representatives. In 2018, he finished serving 2 terms as New Mexico's 29th Lieutenant Governor. In July of 2020, he was asked by President Donald Trump to serve as his national chairman of the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative. Long recognized as one of the country's most influential Hispanics, he continues to work tirelessly, helping others achieve their goals and reach their potential in the greatest country in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez.
Well, thank you, Isabella. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thank all of you for being here tonight. It's wonderful to be back home in Doña Ana County. It has been one of our favorite places ever since Deb and I decided over 20 years ago to serve this great state. And so I'd like to take a moment to introduce my wife, Deborah. Stand up, would you? So as Isabella mentioned in my introduction, and many of you know my story, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think it's important as we talk about what's facing our country today, and that is the difference between what Donald Trump offered in the hand-up of opportunity through hard work, less taxes, less regulation, empowering the American individual, versus what we've seen in almost 90 days under President Biden, where the handout is more prevalent today. I was just talking to one of my good friends from Alamogordo, and we were sharing our challenges as small business people about what it means to hire folks. And today, unfortunately, there are too many Americans who would rather sit home and receive government assistance. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with government assistance. The safety net of government should always be there. But we as conservatives believe that that safety net of government should be a trampoline and not a hammock, right? There should be a difference. And that's really how I was raised, as was mentioned by Isabella, raised by a single mom. 8 kids, didn't have running water. We used to have to use an outhouse to use the restroom. My brother stole a basket of groceries from a local grocery store because there was no food in the cabinets. And my mom looked the other way. She didn't condone it, but she knew that she had the responsibility of feeding these 8 kids. That's how bad it was. But we didn't even realize that we were being raised by a conservative woman. She told us nobody owes you anything. If you're going to make it in this world, you got to go out and work hard for it. Stay in school. Get a good education. If you work for somebody, if they pay you for 8 hours, you work 9. And so, unfortunately and sadly, just about a month and a half ago, I believe, one of the greatest women ever to come out of not only New Mexico, but one of the greatest Americans, she passed away on March 3rd. And we mourned the loss of this woman who was more than just mom. She was a great lady who stood up for her community, who fought for her family, and really epitomized the American dream. During her eulogy, I had the opportunity to share with people who came out to honor her passing. And I shared the story, and Isabella mentioned it in the introduction. Yes, last July, President Donald Trump asked me to serve as his national chairman of the Hispanic Prosperity Initiative. I served nationally. And when I was invited to go to the White House, which I have been there many times, but this was a different opportunity. And I wasn't even aware that I was wearing the exact same outfit that President Donald Trump was wearing. You see, I had that blue suit. I had the white shirt with that long red tie that he always wore. So when I was asked to get up and give remarks there next to the president, I looked over and I realized that we looked somewhat alike. course, he's a little bit taller than I am. I have better color on my skin, you know, you know, the president asked me before giving remarks, you know, listen, what do you want to talk about? And I said, you know, Mr. President, I want to talk about what makes this country great. And he said, then do it. Talk about what you believe makes America great. And you see, I had the opportunity to speak and to say anything I wanted to. I could have espoused the president's great policies of lower taxes. I could have bragged about his cutting back of regulation. I could have bragged about the president talking about how this country under his leadership was energy independent for the first time in decades, right? That America was once again strong. But I took that opportunity in front of a national audience. I'm standing on a podium just like I'm right here. 10 feet away from me is the President of the United States in the Rose Garden. And I took that opportunity to talk about the American dream. I talked about the woman who raised these kids and how she epitomized that. And after I gave those remarks, he smiled at me and said, yeah, that is the American dream, great story. But it's a story that's very, very familiar to a lot of us, right, here in New Mexico. And one of the reasons that we got involved in politics to serve this great state was because we wanted to be able to pass forward those values that had been instilled in us, right? As a young man, I realized that New Mexico had so much potential to offer, but we were not realizing our potential. And so Deborah told me, after hearing me whine and complain about it, why don't you go out and do something about it? And so we did. We got involved, took on our first race. We ran against the mayor, beat him. And we remember, during that race, I was running against a very liberal mayor of this community. And we beat him because we espoused and we bragged about conservative values. We talked about empowering the individual. We talked about making it easier for people to make a payroll, for small businesses to thrive. That lower taxes mean better opportunity. And we beat the guy. 2 years later, what did we do? We took on the most powerful guy in the state of New Mexico, the most powerful Democrat that ever lived in our state. And I say this proudly, and if I could emphasize the former Speaker of the House, Raymond Sanchez. You remember him, right? Him and his buddy, Manny Aragon. They controlled New Mexico with an iron fist. In one large, big debate in that race back in 2000, I can recall sitting in a room of about 500 people, primarily Democrats, primarily Hispanic, who had been voting for this man for 30 years. And I said in my closing statement, Raymond, he hated to be called Raymond. He wanted to be called Mr. Speaker, but I used to say, Raymond, when you keep people poor, when you keep them uneducated, you control them. And for the first time in my life, I played the race card. And the first time I said, you know, Raymond, and by the way, it was so wonderful because we had the same last name. I said, in our culture, the Hispanic culture, we have a name for you. We refer to you and your buddy Manny Aragon as the patrons, right? And that's exactly what they were. The political bosses who hand out just enough, right? And like I said, I'm the recipient of government assistance. When I was a little boy, we used to open up boxes of cheese. I thought the name of the company was not Kraft. I thought it was USTA. You know what it stood for? The United States Department of Agriculture. Those were commodities. And you know what? That was wonderful because it fed this family. But we didn't stay there. You see, it was that trampoline of that safety net. And that really is what led me to believe that we could defeat the most powerful guy in the state. And we did. We went on. And we defeated him. And I went to Santa Fe and put forward those campaign promises that I had made in those literatures. See, every candidate, and for those of you who are running for office, if you make a promise, you keep it. All right? If you say you're going to do something, then do it. You know that in 2000, New Mexico was the only state in America that did not ban the possession of child pornography? Kind of awful to say that, isn't it? But it was because Raymond Sanchez and Manny Aragon had played volleyball with that. One year, Raymond would pass it out of the House, and Manny would kill it in the Senate. The next year, Manny would pass it out of the Senate, and Raymond would kill it in the House. Can you imagine the message it was sending to pedophiles, to people who would harm children, that New Mexico was a haven for child pornographers? I said on the very first day, I'll drop a piece of legislation that will ban the possession of child pornography, and I did that. And I'm happy to say And I'm happy to say that at the end of the 60-day session, Governor Gary Johnson signed into law making sure that we protected New Mexico's children. That law passed. By the way, it wasn't my bill. Why? The Democrats knew that if I had passed that, it would only shame them even more. So they had another Democrat come in and pass it. It didn't matter to me. I didn't care if I got the credit for it. But we made a promise that we were going to do that. Some of the other promises we made was that we were going to offer to New Mexico's children school choice. School choice. Look, I have nothing against public education. Matter of fact, we have two beautiful daughters. They're grown up already. We sent them to private school, K through 8, and then we gave them the opportunity if they wanted to go to public high school when they became 9th graders, and they chose to do so, and they excelled it. There's some great public schools out there, and we got some great public school teachers. But I think that that's the great civil rights movement of now, is the ability to provide, especially in light of the pandemic that has taken place, right? Where children have been, the schools have been shut down and kids have not been able to go to school. Imagine if you, as a taxpayer, would have the ability to send your child wherever you want. And that includes a Catholic education, a parochial school, a Christian education, a private school, homeschool. It doesn't make a difference. And that's one of the reasons why President Trump chose me. He knew that I was a huge advocate because I carried a bill for school choice. I wasn't afraid to call it a school voucher. Today, you can't say that in the state capitol in Santa Fe. You can't say that in any place. But I carried a bill that said it would give every child a voucher. If you wanted to send your child to a private school, you had the ability to do so, because that, short of that, is taxation without representation. You see, these are promises, and these are the type of things that we're going to need to do as conservatives. I'm not certain if everybody in this room is a registered Republican. If you're not, we're going to sign you up when you leave, okay? But if you're a Democrat, or if you're an independent, or you're a decline to state, it doesn't make a difference. We are all Americans. We are all New Mexicans. We're parents, we're business owners, right? We're people who simply want the best thing for our children. We want to be able to live in freedom, having the opportunity that was given to us in previous generations. I'm encouraging you to think about what made America great. This beacon of hope around the world. One of the things, and I want to acknowledge my former chief of staff, Mark Van Dyke, in the back over there. Yeah. Mark was the guy for 8 years who planned out my day. And of course, one of the things that I did, I was the national chairman of the Lieutenant Governors Association International Committee. And so what I did is I took that opportunity to travel the world, not as a junket, but to sell, first and foremost, the state of New Mexico's, its goods and services. Do you know how many times I talked about pecans from Doña Ana County across the, how that we in New Mexico had, here especially, the breadbasket of New Mexico, the best green chili in the world. I'd like to say the only green chili in the world, right? Matter of fact, on one of those trips I took, then Representative David Gallegos, Senator, Senator Gallegos, he went with me to China. And we talked about why America still existed. And of course, we had these great conversations, and we would talk about why New Mexico was a good place to do business. You should come and invest money. But we also talked about why America played such a pivotal role in the world today. As conservatives, we need to stand up for the history of this nation, right? It's not all perfect, but I'll tell you something. I've traveled all over this world, and there is no better place. In my introduction, Isabella said that I'm working hard every day to try to bring opportunity to everybody in the greatest country in the world. You know what, folks? I'm not embarrassed, nor am I ashamed to proclaim that. I believe that is the truth today. America still is the hope of the world. It is. We're going to need, but what we're going to need are leaders who are willing to fight for that, to fight what made America great. Freedom, the freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the ability to stand up for freedom, to push back on tyranny. For us to believe that, and look, by the way, Donald Trump's, when he would use the term make America great and America first, let me reassure you one thing. If I took away one thing from all my international travels, Every country wants their country first. Germany first, China first, India first, right? And it should be that way. It's not being selfish, but we have an obligation. I think that immigration and the challenges that face this country, and you all know it better than most of us in New Mexico, because you're right at the epicenter. You're at the border, right? This country was built on immigration, but legal immigration. Push back on the narrative that they say that conservatives are anti-immigration. No, we are pro-legal immigration, right? These are the things that make America great. And if we're going to continue to go forward, we're going to need not only existing leaders like Senator Gallegos, but we're going to need new leaders who are willing to stand up and to carry the banner and who are willing to fight for it, because we are in the battle of our lives. Make no mistake about it. You've seen what took place at the end of the 60-day session up in Santa Fe. Under this governor and this legislature, we are moving rapidly to becoming one of the most progressive, and I would say socialist states in America. The future of our state is at stake. So whether you serve in the school board or you serve on the city council, you serve as a representative up in Santa Fe, a county commissioner, it makes no difference. If you're thinking about running statewide, we are in the battle of our lives. I still believe that America is a center-right country, and I still believe that in New Mexico we are still a center-right state. We just need to have a better message out there. Look, it's okay for us as conservatives to say that we're against bigger government, we're against higher taxes, right? We sometimes have the tendency to be the party of no. We're against things, and we should be against things. But we should also be the party of no, K-N-O-W. We ought to stand up for what we believe in. We ought to talk about why lower taxes is better for small businesses. Why? Because it puts more money into the pockets of those of us who are making a payroll. We can save money there by investing more in a piece of equipment and hiring 10 people to go out and do a better job. Get them off unemployment, right? We should talk about why school choice is important. Why would we want to trap kids in failing schools? We're simply condemning them for a future of failure if we do not give them the opportunity. We have to be the party and the movement of better ideas. And they're rooted in the history of this country. Let's stand up for our military. We have veterans here. Please stand up or raise your hand. Let's give them a round of applause. We love you guys and gals. Freedom isn't free. I told my daughter, we all have kids, and they didn't understand why Mom and I would talk about, complaining about tax season, right? She's a taxpayer now, right? She's an adult. And I said, you see those airplanes flying, those military jets, you see those ships on the ocean, you see those men in tanks. I said, that's where your tax dollars are going. Let's support our military. Let's support the things that make America great. Let me just say in closing, we need to be able to say what makes us conservatives and why we're not only against things, but we stand. We're pro-life. We ought to stand up for the unborn, right? We should be pro-family and give our kids the ability to live in an environment, in a household that will give them every opportunity to succeed. We should be pro-business, understanding that it's the private sector that moves this country's economy. Pro-military and pro-police. I was so saddened. I was so saddened when the news came here in southern New Mexico when I believe Officer Jarrett, when he was murdered in cold blood. Why? Because the failure of the state of California and law enforcement throughout this country did not simply hold that felon accountable. That could have been prevented. We need to stand with that family and all those men and women, those first responders who are putting their lives on the line every single day. I'm not ashamed to say that. Stand up for the belief. And finally, being pro-America. I'm proud to be an American. We fly our flag all the time. I love this country. It's offered me and my family so many opportunities, and now it's our opportunity to pay back and give and pay it forward. And finally, we should stand up. And the reason that this great country was created, it wasn't by accident. It was by divine intervention. And the fact that we, as Americans, should stand up and say that we're not ashamed to say that this is a Christian nation, that we believe in God, that we believe that we have a purpose, and that it's providential. I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. We want to encourage you, reach out to all your friends, and I know that, Isabella, your push to bring in more Hispanics into the conservative movement is critical, because in New Mexico it's the largest state percentage-wise with Hispanics. Hispanics will have such an impact nationally. It does every election cycle. But Hispanics are closet Republicans. Hispanics are closet conservatives, because we stand, and as Hispanics, we understand those values. They are conservative values. We should go out there and not only, we have the right message, now go out and be the right messenger. God bless you. Thank you for having me. God bless Doña Ana County. God bless the United States. Thank you so much.